Good
Nice
morning.
one.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
It kind of threw me off there.
Yeah, it's a flying start. Let me introduce everybody. We've got Dave joining us from New South Wales, down under. Good morning, Dave.
Yes.
What time is it?
Good evening.
What time? What time is it in your end?
We just hit 7 a.m.
Oh dear.
Whoa.
Sorry
been
about
up
that,
for a
man.
while.
Did you stay
up
up, or did you just wake up, or did you stay up?
I got up at 5. Yeah, got kids and stuff to get off to school. So thanks to my Mrs. Sarah Last for helping out with the me getting here at 7 instead of 8, which means we can start a bit earlier, which is good.
Great. Well, good.
Thanks
to have
for
you.
inviting me as well.
Yeah, good to have you on. It's been a while, man. It's been
Yeah, it has.
ages. It's been ages.
That was in the 90s. What year was it? I can't remember that you got that Synton vocoder from me.
Yeah, I was just discussing that with Vincent before, and I think that was 96, 97.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Did
Look
I
at-
have
Look
Rose
at this.
MC4? Oh, yes. Hello, old friend. It's probably
still
a lot
here.
better condition with you than it would have been with me. I'll tell you.
Well, it's in a very good place still. You know, it's occasionally
see.
it's still being used, and yeah, it's been part of the collection ever since I got it from you. So that was good.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
I found a tape of stuff I made on that the other day, actually. Probably
Oh,
about
cool.
94, 95, I think. 95.
Nice.
Is this something that you ever used in any releases, or is it just in your private archive?
Just in the archive, I think. Maybe a few bits here and there on some tracks, old ones.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll get back to the vocoder. Let's first say hi
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Tuuun, tuning in from the north,
Copenhagen, baby.
Copenhagen. Yeah, boy.
All right.
How are you?
I am very good.
Excellent.
Yeah. Copenhagen is nice this time of year, apart from the rain, you know.
Autumn in Copenhagen. Okay, cool. And Vincent,
Hi.
or Drug Culture, joining us from Tilburg, the south of
South
Holland.
of Holland, at the very least. Yeah, that's south of Holland. Yeah. Hi. Nice to see you all.
Yeah,
You too,
good to
man.
have you. Good to have
Yeah,
you.
you too.
Yeah. So I see that Vince is sitting in his kitchen. Is that where you make your music?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. At the moment, it's not that it really is. I have a studio in the attic as well, but I have a young daughter, so when she goes to bed, I can't do anything anymore. So my producing hours are limited till her afternoon nap, and sometimes when she's off to kindergarten. So.
Well, I guess
how
it
it is.
focuses you to use your time wisely, right?
Yeah. Let's call it that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just I feel like I'm just rushing all the time to get, like, if I have an hour, it's like just like trying to get something started and finished and mixed and mastered, everything in 1 hour. So sometimes I succeed and sometimes not so much. It's all right.
Well, but you are still. I mean, I see stuff appearing on your SoundCloud all the time. So you still seem to have quite a high level of productiveness going on.
Yeah. If I can't produce for a couple of days, I get really cranky. And my wife tells me to go upstairs and make music. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
Okay. But I mean, yeah. But you're still able to crank them out. So so that's very good.
I've gotten really fast at producing, so that's just very
So
lucky at this point.
You said you write, record, mix, and master everything yourself. Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I used to do mastering for others as well, but I don't do it anymore. It's just too time consuming, and Sometimes for friends I'll do something, but for others I won't, because it takes up too much of my time, and I only have so many hours I can work. So I rather focus on my own music.
Do you feel that you can still retain a fresh perspective on what you are doing when you master your stuff? Or
My own stuff?
Yeah, because I usually I've done it in the past, but I would say 90% of the stuff that I've done is eventually mastered by somebody else who approaches it from more like a technical point of view. And I feel when I'm mastering myself, I run into these things that are kind of difficult to make the trade-offs, to make the sacrifices, because sometimes you have to radically do things. And you might have to get rid of something that you are really proud of or could really attach to, you know what I mean? And if you give it to somebody else, they'll just do the hard work for you. You don't have to make that painful decision. That's what I mean. You know what I mean? Don't you get that?
Yeah, but not really. I don't really try. I try not to get too attached to music, to my own music. Yeah. I get attached to other people's music, but my own music, I don't know. It's just I know what it's supposed to. My ears are the most valuable thing, and I know what I'm doing. I know what my speakers sound like, so it's fairly easy for me to get it to the point where it's sounds like normal. And then then I send it off into the world and farewell. Sometimes if it's for vinyl, I also of course keep the unmastered waves of everything. But sometimes if it's for vinyl, I'll have somebody else do it or have the label do it. But normally I'll just do it myself. It's much faster and cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah, it is faster and cheaper. Yeah. I don't mean it in a way that I get attached to my music. I mean, for me, is when it's done, it's done. It's like, okay, this is the egg. It's now. I laid the egg. It's fine. It's I'm temporarily satisfied with whatever it's become, and then it takes on its next life as something which is public domain, or not from me anymore. But people can have their own sort of experience with it and whatever, and I don't even look back to it. I never play my own music. I never look back to my older stuff. I don't really care about it. But still, if you are working on something and with a certain intention, it can happen that you have to kind of say goodbye to that if you're looking at the whole thing from a mastering perspective. Like some bass frequency that sounds fucking amazing in your studio, like it sort of really gets you going, and then you have to kind of cut it off because it just won't stick to vinyl. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Yeah. I'll let other people do that, make that painful decision.
But you don't you put anything on your master out when you're recording or producing?
Rarely. No. Well,
I always put a limiter there and some slight EQing, just so I know what it will sound like if it's mastered.
Yeah. That's I do that, but it's not engaged. It's just something I flip on and off once in a while, just to see what remains of the sound when it's slightly more compressed or EQ'd a little bit. Just to see in what direction. So because some sound behaves weird sometimes. Sometimes it has a life of its own. If you have a certain dynamic in a piece of audio and you compress it, it might take on a completely different identity, in a way. So I do check that sometimes, but I don't produce with a master channel engaged all the time. So it's just sometimes just to see how it behaves when it's treated in a way. I
had this thing with Tuuun sent me some tracks some time ago, and they are really sparse and minimal sounding, but they all have like huge synth sounds in the middle. I don't know what that is, but when I started mastering them, I noticed that they basically just took up the entire spectrum almost. And then you had like a kick underneath and some hi-hat on top of it, and then the middle was all the synth thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it started. I get what you're saying. It started to behave something completely different than it was unmastered. But I think you also put. I don't know. Tuuun, do you put something on your master channel before you send them out?
I always make music. Well, if I'm making techno, I always make it into a compressor. Always.
Yeah.
Because I feel that it makes the track more exciting when you're making it. So that leads you to make different decisions while you're in the process, and it can lead you to maybe instead of, let's say, adding a new element or something like that, you might be like, okay, well, I'll just develop this thing that's already sounding exciting instead of like adding a rim shot or cowbell or whatever. So anything that makes the process more exciting for me, I'm like pretty happy about that. So so that's how I usually do it.
You can never go wrong with more cowbell, though. That's like
that's the rule.
But would that be on your actual master channel, or are you mixing into a group and then into your master channel? Is it so? It's in a sense, it's part of the sound design of the.
Yeah, it's part of the sound design.
Yeah.
I don't make music. Well, I rarely make techno on a computer. I usually use an Octatrack for everything that's techno-y. So I always just have a compressor on the master track inside the Octatrack, and that's always just there. Usually, pretty much the exact same settings all the time, and that's just makes it sound fat. So that's what I do.
Hey, if that works, use it, right?
I think it works. It definitely does something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that you gave away your secret weapon in the first 15 minutes of the chat. If you want to sound like Tuuun, just get an Octatrack and compress the fuck out of it.
Yeah,
pretty much. Mm-hmm.
Then again, I bought an Octatrack from Tuuun, and I didn't get it to sound like Tuuun at all. So I couldn't get anything decent out of it. So I sold it again. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All your stuff is still in it, I think.
Really?
I think. I'm not sure. I didn't
I
know
was
how
like
to believe.
because I've never backed that up. That's all my old tracks, and it's kind of like just said fuck it and let's just move on. And I did kind of want them back for a while, but now it's okay because I've made lots more. But it's fine. But someone out there is enjoying it, I hope.
I don't know if he's this like sometimes somebody who really enjoys it, because he sent me like 2 messages after I sold it to him, like there's a little scratch here and there's a little scratch there. And so I was going like, okay, whatever. I've never looked at, I don't look at gear like that, but so I'm not sure if he really enjoys looking at the patterns.
I'd actually bought that Octatrack secondhand in the first place off this this Spanish producer who had like a load of gear, like so much gear, like loads of Eurorack, like it was like more than you could even buy or set up in any length of reasonable time. And when I got it from him, there was just 5 samples on it, and all of them was just a voice shouting cocaine. That was it. It was so strange.
But you never used that in a track.
No, I didn't. No.
Yeah, it reminds me of the time when I bought my Revox tape machine, and it came with a box full of tapes, and I thought, this person must have just, given me tapes, to use and wipe them before they, they gave it to me. But it was full of stuff, experimentations with guitars and noise and pedals and stuff. It was basically the best tapes I could have found with a recorder, instead of just some people's record collection taped to magnetic tape or anything. It was an actual musician that owned it. So I still have some of them. I've ran music over them for the stuff that I didn't think were interesting, but I did end up using some of it.
Cool.
Which is great.
Nice.
Yeah, found sounds. It's a good present to get with a recorder. You like some preloaded content.
Or sample discs, or Dave, do you have any? I see there's a bunch of samplers behind you, or not?
I'm not sure there's samplers there. There's a
Roland.
JV 28.
All right.
There. Yeah, they're all FM mainly, wave station and an 01, stuff like that. There's some samplers around. samplers are a bit. I just have a lot of trouble with samplers. I've got a couple of samplers. I've got an Emax 2 still and an Emulator 4, but I don't really get on too well with hardware samplers that much. I've used them a bit, but I prefer the Rompler stuff these days. I did so much sampling in the 80s and 90s. I kind of wore myself out, I think, for a while, and now I just want some easier tools to arrive in hardware, which I think are on the way. You know, it's coming.
You're oversampled. You oversampled everything, and then just it
Yeah,
lost its appeal
in
to
a
you.
different sense, I've oversampled. I suppose I've just done so much. You know, I used to make sample tapes and stuff with, you know, for myself that I can sample from. So I'd sit in the studio and make up like long tapes of like D10 sounds and things like that. And after I just got it, I found all of those the other day actually. I've got tape deck just here next to me at the moment, which is my main tool is a Yamaha KX250 at the moment. Tape deck. Just going through old tapes before they all die.
Good.
Talking of which, I'm trying to locate like 4-track and 8-track tape decks like Porter Studios because I long since got rid of mine. Talking of sampling, so there's still a lot of multi-tape sampling stuff for that. And like they're so expensive, I can't believe Behringer or some other company doesn't make like a 4 or an 8-track Porter Studio like really cheap because
For sure.
the old ones are so expensive now.
Really?
Yeah.
We've got a couple of the little test cam 4-tracks around here, and
Send me one over.
Yeah. Well, I actually
send
use
it
them.
back.
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you will. Well, but they're mostly used as preamps here. You know, like they have this really strange way, like a soft way of distorting sound. You know, they don't sound like a harsh type of distortion. If you, the funny thing is, you can drive there's a gain on every channel, and it basically runs stepless without steps. From mic to line input, so so basically whatever you stick in, you know, you can. From line to mic, so you can gain it like in a crazy. You can gain line signals in a crazy way, and it somehow retains punch and character, but it's awfully dirty. You know, it's really really dirty. Sometimes I use the tape, but mostly I just use the No, it's got a really nice saturated sound. Made for
great.
Yeah.
I regret selling mine. Yeah.
But you can still pick them up for cheap, man. I don't know where you're looking, but I think.
Well, in Australia you can't. I think there's limited availability. I'm going to have to get one from Japan or somewhere. I reckon. I used to have like a 688, Tascam 688 Porter Studio 8-track, and then before that I had a Porter 1 that I got in '85. I kept it, still had it in the box when I got rid of it. Although I did swap it for like a massive 8-unit modular synth in 1988 or '89. I think it was this huge ETI modular that. I sold it to some dude. It ended up in the science museum.
So is that what you do, Dave? You basically get into something. If you want to get in something new, you buy stuff and you let some other stuff go that you've kind of exhausted or something. Is this always a rotating?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I'm happy to sell stuff. You know, as well as buying new stuff. Like the Essence FM, for example, that looks really interesting. That if you've seen that, like a 300 voice FM multi-timbral, like ultra FM synth with 8 outputs, and they've only made 150. Pardon?
Which one's that?
It's called Essence FM.
Okay.
By a company called Codemo. So they're just putting up pre-orders for the Mark II at the moment. So. You have to get in quick because they're going to produce the next lot in February. They're amazing, absolutely incredible Like,
Do you have one?
No. I've got one. I'm pre-ordering a Mark II. They're like I say, 300 note polyphonic, multi-timbral, eight outputs. I think they're balanced outputs actually.
That's crazy. What are you planning on doing with that?
Replacing a load of these, hopefully. Well, not replacing, but cutting down the amount of machines I have to operate to do, really nice multi-timbral microtonal FM based stuff. Because at the moment, it takes quite a lot of outboard FM synths to do what I do. Even though I've used FM soft synths as well, there's some great ones out there, and free stuff as well. It's really good. It's kind of because I've been doing it a long time. I've had to work with these machines, so I've kind of developed my techniques and presets and files and stuff over the years with these. But
so how
they're not
do you
going to last forever. So you got to embrace the new stuff, and also embrace the new manufacturers who aren't just the big manufacturers. Korg are having a go with that Opt6 that's just come out, which looks really interesting. I don't know if they're going to put microtuning on that though.
You'd hope so.
You'd hope so, yeah. But whether they will or not.
Well, didn't
It's
they
not
do?
the
Didn't they
way
do this?
they kind of has it,
Yeah.
but they've not released any of the MIDI spec yet, which is a bit disappointing for the Wave Stakes. That's very promising. But the software version of the Wave Station is very good. I don't know if anybody's tried that. That's really quite cheap. The legacy Wave Stations. They've just brought out version 2 of that. Version 1 was sounded great, but the interface was just utterly terrible.
I remember it was horrible.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
This little vector thing.
Yeah, but now you can resize the screen. Now you can actually preset sizes of the screen for the legacy Wave Station, so it will make it. You can actually see what's on the screen.
That helps.
And edit it, so it's actually usable.
I have this the original AD, the Wave Station AD, the rack mount, the rack mount. Yeah, and it is I don't know, it's not the best interface ever, but since that was my only poly for for a while when it came out, I bought it when it came out. I think that was 91, 92 or something like that. So since it was my only thing, my only poly, I learned how to program it quite well, So, and the cool thing about that was the first FX processor I had as well. So I use it as to route audio into and use the onboard effects on drums and shit like that as well. But it's looking back at it, it's if you it's not the most intuitive interface, but if you spend enough time behind the machine, if it's your only thing to use, then I kind of it kind of forces you to get a hold of get it under control.
This one here, the Wave Station SR, has got the worst interface of any Wave Station, practically any synth, really. It's just absolutely
That's
terrible.
a one unit version of the AD, right?
Yeah. So
that's terrible.
My AD I got for $50 because it was kind of pretty bashed up. So I got it for $50, which is pretty good. Only like a couple of years ago I got the AD. But it's in a pretty poor state. That's the 01RW. That's another one I got super cheap. It was just all falling to bits. So if you can get them cheap still like that if they're falling to bits. But the AD interface is better than the SR because you really can't. Well, I had to program it from the front panel, but I wouldn't want to do it again anymore.
Can I ask you, since you're so such a fan of FM stuff, how do you go about programming? Do you have do you use random generators, or do you actually go in and tweak everything by hand? How do you come up with
Well,
How do you solve the programming
started-
big? Because FM is notoriously annoying to program if you don't have the right way of inputting your data, right?
I've never found it that way, to be honest. But you know, I do a lot of science and maths as well, so I've kind of I've spent a few years reading the theory before I could even afford to get one. And I got a TX81Z, which was like the cheapest kind of one you could get at the time, really, that was any good. Had micro tuning and multiple waveforms on the oscillators and stuff. Just a little 1U. I mean, it's a classic little bot. Yeah. And that was a good one to start on because it wasn't as complicated as the DX7, even though I was reading all the DX7 kind of blurb and info and the books and stuff, and reading in the mags about how you program it. But I've done all the FM theory in my telecoms courses anyway when I worked at Telecom. So we'd learnt all of the theory for all the different types of frequency, amplitude, phase, modulation, frequency shift keying, ring modulation, you know, all this stuff I'd done in the early 80s as part of my apprenticeship anyway, and it all comes from that technology. You know, there's nothing different about the equations that are used in sound synthesis that were derived from all of that telecoms theory. It's the same stuff, basically, just applied in a different way. So it wasn't difficult from my point of view. I could understand it was kind of radically different from what had come before because it was more analog before that. You know, dealing with most oscillators would have like, you know, switchable footages more like on an organ or something like that, whereas this was dealing with ratios and frequencies, which unless you were, you know, done a lot of also musical theory on the ratios of notes within scales and things like that, was also probably not going to make a lot of sense straight away. I don't think.
I mean, what I'm saying really is, I mean, of course, it's possible to get into the theory behind it and completely understand that, and it's not really that complex, you know. But anyway, the way of inputting data is quite tedious. Yeah, that's what I mean. So I mean, one of the favorite things.
What I did to overcome that with the TX81Z, because that kind of arrived at the same time as I had an Amiga, and what I worked out early on with computers was don't ever pledge allegiance to one manufacturer, same way you synthesizers, you know, any technology, just don't pledge allegiance to anybody, just use whatever manufacturer is making whatever and work out a way to connect it together, you know, before MIDI at least anyway. And then, so I got in addition to my Amiga, I picked up a Cubase and an Atari ST. So I was using the MIDI mixer maps in Cubase. So I built my own mixer map in Cubase to have all the dials and stuff and all the sliders, control all the sysx parameters in the TX81Z. So I didn't have to then worry about all the theory or anything. I could just play around with it anyway, like you would want to do if all those controls were on the panel in any case. Then obviously I've moved further into algorithmically controlling those parameters. So I stepped back from that and had them being controlled either randomly or in some algorithmic or generative way, perhaps. You know.
There's actually a company, and I believe they're a Dutch company, who built a full-blown FM controller for the DX7. Have you ever seen that? It's a massive. Yeah.
Yellinghouse, yeah. They did one for the Waldorf microwave as well, actually, I think.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, that was Access. Sorry, Access did the Waldorf microwave and the Oberheim Matrix 6 and 1000. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting confused. Yeah, Yellinghouse. Yeah, great colour. It was blue.
Yeah,
so
exactly. That one.
I mean, it was a total winner for me straight away because it looked quite spacey, but I couldn't afford one of those. But yeah, great. They've redone that actually. Somebody's started remaking that that controller for the DX7, I believe. I forget the name of the company now. It's like a cheaper version of it that's been kind of redone. It's
Okay.
quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's a great idea because it opens up the access to everything. You can be way more intuitive with it if you can just try things out in in a way,
Yeah.
in a much
The
quicker
thing-
way.
The thing with stuff like that is that you have to get your head around when you start working with controllers like that is that unlike a synth that's been designed with all those controls on the panel and to have proper displays and everything, they're not always what you see is not always what you're getting if you know what I mean. It kind of happens on a lot of synths that have those panels where I mean, you can look back to something like the Jupiter 4 even, a synth like that, where you've got a programmable synth with an analog type panel, but you can call up presets which will then make whatever's on most part of the panel either not functional, which was what would happen with the Jupiter 4 when you put it into preset mode. You only have a specific part of the panel you can control, the rest of it then becomes inoperative. Or nowadays where you're live taking over what those parameters are, you're glancing at the synth, what you're actually seeing is not always what's in the synth, which is something that you have to kind of come to terms with when you're programming something with that amount of parameters that have to be extracted out in some way.
Yeah. Are you Tuuun or Vince FM addicts or are?
I really like
What-
FM.
Yeah.
I've kind of gone from maybe the complete opposite angle to that Dave has, in that, like, okay, the only FM synth that I own at the moment is this. Hold on, I got this. Is this one, which is the Model Cycles from
Oh,
Electron.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, it's FM with just 4 knobs,
yeah.
and that's it. It's all been abstracted out from all these like complex relationships between ratios and envelopes and all of this stuff, and it's just like you just have 4 knobs. They're called like tone, color, something else, shape, and something else, and you can get pretty far with that. I mean, it's it's all right.
It took Yamaha till the I think it was the V50 before they finally did that type of thing, and they had these quick edit sliders on the V50, which I mean for me was the pinnacle of the 4 operator synths that Yamaha made. Because they put that on, you could quickly alter envelopes, and you could also alter. I think they had brightness and things like that.
I feel like the envelopes are always like, well, if you look at something like the DX7 or like the clones, like there was this one that I used to have called the Preen. FM3, which is like a DIY synth. That's that one right there. And the envelopes are just complicated, and that's the one thing I would like to have maybe made a bit simpler for working with FM.
That's one of the easiest things that they can change as well, because it's just an envelope generator is just a module, so it's up to the manufacturer what type of envelope generator module they decide to put into their synthesizer. So you need more people like your good self shouting up to these manufacturers and telling these people that it's about time they started listening to musicians more.
Exactly.
We should march up to the headquarters.
Musicians deserve more rights.
Rights for musicians.
Better interfaces for musicians.
Yeah.
That
Actually,
makes it
there's a small sort of rave loop. What do you call them? Groovebox type thing. The DX200.
I've always wanted one.
Yeah,
They're
I've got one.
shit.
Yeah. No, I mean they're terrible because they're terrible in a way that the effects are insanely dodgy and cheap. But if you take them off and you just use the FM engine in there, it actually sounds really good. You know, sorry, what?
It's a DX7 board inside, basically.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. It's a shrunk down version of a DX7 inside. The interface again is just like quite.
Yeah, I mean it's good. It's it's got a drum section in there which is horrible, and the effects are terrible. You know whatever you do, you'll always hit the I don't know how they routed it, but the preamp or where the effects are, the sounds are going into the effects. They balance it so badly that you're always clipping it. So if you take it off, you just take off the effects, take off all the stuff. But the engine itself, if you just use it pure for the pure tones, for the sounds, it's actually quite powerful because it's almost like a predecessor of the how do you call this thing from Electron, the Digitone, or it's got parameter lock and stuff. You know,
compatible inside the engines. You can load the X7 presets into it. So 6 operator FM. It's just not very well made, and
no, it's a cheap toy. But if you dress it down, then what remains is just a very pure FM synth.
I think they're good in the sense that they're small. They're only like about this big.
Yeah,
they're quite small. But people do, I think they ask too much money for them, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they're expensive secondhand, like these days.
Sounds good though.
They should really be a lot cheaper than they are because they're not great to use. The manual is utterly appalling. And it's like about this thick, and it's utterly appalling. But yeah, I mean, it's a good, if you see one cheap, somebody puts one up cheap, it's a good way to get DX7 compatible hardware FM. It's only a stereo out though, isn't it? If I remember. Yeah. I mean, look, it's an interesting box to keep your eye out for. Just don't pay over the odds for it, like anything, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess it's just if you don't really want to get into the depths of FM synth programming and you just want to have a few knobs and listen what happens. Yeah, like Vince.
It's got some twiddlers on it and stuff. But I had a few good goes on that, made some tracks on it and stuff as well, actually. And I mean, it was fun. Don't get me wrong. I kind of had some fun with it, you know. But I thought it was a bit overpriced for what the market seemed to be at for it.
Yeah.
I can recommend this Electron model Cycles. It's very cheap. And the kicks are like so good. Like some of the best bass drums I've heard that aren't like, the standard. They're really, really, really good.
I've been thinking about getting one of those. I don't know what's kind of. I know what kind of what's holding me back. It's like the thing that I'm not playing shows right now. But I've been trying. I've been looking into getting one for like a couple of months. I think it looks really, really good actually. I'll probably sell some gear and then get one of those and see where it leaves me.
The Electron stuff does look good. It looks really well built, I have to say. I've not owned any of their gear, and I think I only had a quick play with Finley Shakespeare's. I can't remember. I think he had the drum one and the FM one up at Leeds when I saw him up there last year. I had a quick play, and they just seem really nicely put together. Like well thought out. Boxes designed to be moved around a lot as well, so sturdy. Take them about with you. Which is,
is it another one of those things where, like the other Electron stuff, where I need to go through 50 menus to get my sound altered?
It's a bit easier.
I said, if I don't get it like working like fast, I lose interest.
Yeah,
I noticed by.
Do you use Electribe for most of your stuff, or what is it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, the Korg stuff.
Yeah,
The Electribe.
in the early ones.
Okay.
The red one.
Jochem, yeah, I have them all. But Jochem, do you remember there was a guy? I think he was also from Rotterdam, like a Tim.
Yeah.
He did like a couple of records with those, like the early, the first generation of Electribes, the red, blue, and yellow, I think, or green. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was thinking about
remember.
him. I was thinking about him just the other day because I also have all those boxes. And I was going like, whatever happened to that guy? Is he still like around? Does he still work?
I don't know. I was cleaning my DAT archive, just see what was on there, and sort of digitizing things that before the tape crumbled, And I found some stuff by him that he was. Because back in the days we were in contact, and send each other's tracks, and I think I've done a remix for him and the other way around, So, but yeah, I haven't heard from him for a while, but his music was absolutely out there, just insane,
Yeah.
really amazing.
I thought it was pretty
very
cool.
Very talented guy. Yeah,
it's pretty cool that he used like these really relatively cheap machines to make that like a theme for his releases. I think he did like 2 or 3 of those 12 inches.
Yeah.
It was. I kind of like that because it was like it also showed a lot of younger kids maybe that it's okay to use like these almost toys to produce on. I dug that.
he was very much in his own universe, and he was also doing the drawings for his artwork. All the artwork is made by him as well.
All right, nice.
Yeah, really cool stuff. But I haven't seen him for a while. I don't know what's.
I'll look him up.
Yeah.
Ask him for his old debts.
Hey, somebody popped a message up about that Korg Op6 thing, which is that new FM thing that Korg are putting up. Now, I've had a look at that. Have you seen that Loopop video on the Korg Op6?
No.
Where he goes
Not
into,
yet.
he does like a massive, like super in-depth, I think it's like nearly 1 hour on the whole thing, on what the Op6 does, all the different things and features of it. Well, most of it, as much as you can do in an hour. And it does look pretty impressive, I have to say. I think Korg seems to have done a pretty good job of taking like something that's going to be DX7 compatible, but taking it a little bit further as well. Both with the interface, but also with the synth architecture underneath as well, and not just recreating a DX7, which is kind of what they did with the Vulcan. Was more that Vulcan FM. I mean, I haven't got one, and I haven't played on one, unfortunately.
Have you tried the stuff they did in the Motive series? Because that's there's FM in there as well, right? In addition.
No,
to
I've not played with the Motive one. There's that Mod X or Mode X as they like to pronounce it, but I don't think I'd ever pronounce it like that. But I think Yamaha are. I think they've lost the plot, to be quite honest, with FM, with all this montage and the MODX or whatever it is, because it just seems so far beyond the reach of any normal human being. I don't know who I can't imagine who they're aiming the FM range at these days. It's just so beyond me. I can't who. Apart from they've got all that power, and it seems to be in the hands of the few, which is very, very bizarre when you think how far and how long they've been working with FM. You think they should be leading the field, whereas it seems like Korg and some other companies, like say Essence FM and Preen and Electron and people like that, seem to be really pushing FM forward now rather than Yamaha. It's a bit of a shame, really, but they've upgraded it to you know what this kind of level, which is 8 operator FM. So the MODX and the montage are 8 operator. They're not 6 operator. But even with that FS1R, you know, I got that when it came out, when it was discontinued, because they were selling them off so bloody cheap because they couldn't sell them at the time because it was so complicated to use. So I got it really cheap, like brand new from Turnkey in London. They were just trying to, they were just throwing them out the door to get rid of them. It's hilarious. But I mean, when you look at the algorithm chart for something like that, 8 operator, they're not really even taking advantage of the fact that they've got 8 operators, because a lot of the algorithms are really just multiples of 2 and 3 and 4 operator setups potentially put in parallel. Ones that actually utilize anything new by having those 2 extra operators is quite small. And for something like the FS1R, you can't program your own algorithms on that, which I mean you can on 6 operator on the TG77 or SY99. You can make up your own algorithms in software, but the Core GOP6 allows you to do that. You can make up your own FM matrix with it, like you can with a modular. You know, you can do the same thing on a modular. If you want to build an 8 operator modular synth on an operator, all you need are 8 oscillators. They can be single dual or whatever, and then an amplifier to go with them, and an envelope generator, and either a matrix or a bunch of patch cables, and you're away, aren't you? Sort of thing. Long as they've got linear FM inputs, it comes with linear FM.
Might need 8 envelopes.
Let's get this question answered, because you were mentioning the FS1R.
Yeah. Is it programmable without an editor? If you have time.
Question from Square Methods. That's one of our regulars on the Discord server.
Yeah, if you've got time, if you have the time, yes, it is actually quite programmable from the panel once you get your head around the how the panel works and the architecture of the synth, which is a bit, again, the Yamaha really did seem to lose their way a bit, I think, with it. But it is doable. You can do it. Because it's 4 parts, and you've got multiple buttons, and then you've got like tons of different menus, and you've got like voice, and then performance, and it all gets a bit weird. But you can do it. Yeah, you can go through, say, a preset library on it reasonably quickly and edit. Find a sound that's maybe something like close to what you're looking for. I mean, or even exactly what you're looking for. Some of the presets are quite good. And then you can get in and edit reasonably easy, as long as it's not too hardcore in the voice programming section, which is the really deep part. That gets really tedious. But a lot of the top level stuff you can do quite easily once you've navigated it. Don't expect the manual to be a lot of help.
So that sounds like a machine made for Vince.
Yeah, I mean, the manual's like that,
Okay.
The manual's about that big. Most of the information is in the system exclusive, the MIDI system exclusive implementation, which gives you like all the parameters, and that's in a tiny font in a small section. Like a grey on black, grey on white font.
So Vincent, you said you're more like a hands-on, instant gratification kind of guy, right? So what are your favorite?
I used to have a DX21 and a DX100, I think. Does that exist?
DX100, yeah, absolutely.
I had both of those, and I fiddled around with it for a bit, but I couldn't get the sounds I wanted, and I was just like, and I just used them. I just used them as a MIDI keyboard only.
Okay.
And then I sold them again. Like, I can't get it to sound like I want. But this was also in the 90s, so I was a little bit more impatient then. By now, I've gotten a little bit more patient, but I still not enough for the Octatrack. So it was just like, no, this is just I can't. I don't have the time to dive deep into this. So yeah, right now I'm just really enjoying toying around with those all the little stuff that is so easily available. So the old Electrives, of course, all the Volcas, I'm really having fun with those. I really like the Volca sample, actually. It's a super weird thing, and especially if you sample your own stuff in it, it can get really weird really fast, and you can get really excellent results with it really quickly. I love it. So I'm just thinking about selling everything and buying 4 or 5 of those Volca samples and just getting rid of everything else. Sorry.
Have you got the Volca drum? Because that looks really interesting. That one.
I think I had the Volca rhythm, and the Volca bass, and the Volca FM, and the Volca sample. Yeah.
Yeah, the drum one looks. That's like I think it's 6 voice drum synth and drum machine. You can program rhythms on it. That Cuckoo guy did a really nice little video, like an hour video on that Volca drum, actually, which was what made me interested in it. I wasn't really paying much attention to the drum ones that they were doing. I obviously paid attention to the FM one and the modular one, but I've not bought any. I'm keeping my eyes out for a cheap FM one. And the drum one looks... For a lot of like we did that Celtic cellular drum stuff, for example. I really like these little things that give you the ability to have multiple channels of drums. So for example, on the Volca drum thing, we've got 6, which it's enough to make a little track on, isn't it? With have a bit of fun. Well, yeah, 4 should be more than enough for anybody, shouldn't it? Really?
Yeah. But that has a cool a cool delay. It's got like a waveguide delay or something like that.
Yeah.
That I think is pretty cool sounding.
Weird stuff on it. That Cuckoo video was like it really opened my eyes on all the different things you can do with it, and it's quite a remarkable little thing, really, for not a lot of money. Again, Korg are just for some of the big manufacturers, I think Korg have really done quite well, actually. They haven't got much of their gear, but I think they've done quite well for some of the big manufacturers.
I think it's what's cool about those little things that they're like really cheap and really available, and you can get like I've spoken to a lot of people just lately that recently got into like doing electronic music, and they told me like, I just bought this Korg thing and a Volca thing, and I just bought another Volca thing, and I can connect them, and they work together. Like really excited. So I think that's very important for a lot of people to have access to stuff they can work with easily. For me, I'll usually just record hardware stuff in the computer again, and then edit it or use it or make something else with it. But I think for a lot of people, that's a really important step to have that connection with something like a little bit of gear and another bit of gear, and they can sync it together, and then they'll work together. Like that feeling is.
It's so important, isn't it, when you kind of starting out to be able to see a bit of a pathway forward as well, where knowing that it's not necessarily going to like just totally kill you. Like you'll have to have a wanting to baked beans for like 3 months or something because you've just got like this new synth or something. Like I'm not going out like for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I remember that when I started out, I got like a drum machine and then another drum machine, and then I first time I hooked up like a MIDI cable and got them to sync. It was like a really big deal for me, like
magic.
Yeah, like a little bit of magic. Yeah, this was also early '90s, so it was I don't know, man. It felt a little bit like magic. It really did. and then hooking up like a Poly 800, which had a sequencer, and then I could make like sequences and sync that with a drum machine. It was super. I just thought I was like a king of electronic music.
Well, when MIDI came out, like it was, I don't know how it was like for other people, but I mean, I've been playing around with synths for a few years, and you kind of, you're working with different manufacturers' gear, and it's not, wasn't that, you could connect stuff up, but it wasn't always that easy. And you had to buy other gear or build gear, like learn electronics in order to be able to connect one piece of gear to the other. So when MIDI first came out, it was like everybody was just like, wow, like finally there's somebody's like, okay, it's not perfect, but at least somebody's had a go at making some sort of way of connecting these machines together finally.
I also had the same feeling when I first hooked up the Atari 1040. Like it had MIDI, which has MIDI, which is like perfect. It's great, but it's also like kind of insane. And then first time I made like a sequence in the Atari, I was blown away. It was really life altering for me, I think. So I just hope that by having these companies do like this little stuff that's almost that's so cheap that it's almost like toys. I hope that inspires a lot of people to start out and make music. I think that's
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there's really something to say about these almost toyish little boxes, because even though the features are limited, there can be, some of them are incredibly playful and very it's a good experience, a really adventurous experience, to play on these things, because they're almost instantly understandable. Yeah. And yet they have a range that is big enough to still have enough variation over time, So it's cool.
Yeah. One of my favorite ones of those kind of boxes is another one by Korg. Hi Korg, Mono Tribe. It sounds so good. The bass drum is really nice, and if you're into electronics, you can do modifications on the bass drum, so you can get like a really long sounding bass and a long snare. And there was this guy that I had one for a while, and there was a guy you could buy kits off you could like add an extra oscillator to it to do oscillator FM and filter FM, all this crazy stuff. And it sounds like really nice, but it's designed so that the kick, the snare, and this little white noise hi-hat that it's got sound really, really good together. And yeah, I remember just like having so much fun with this tiny, tiny little box, and made so many tracks in a really short space of time they're all in the same key, and like they all had like pretty similar vibe, but like that's totally fine. Like
I also enjoy the fact that I can just it's on batteries, and I can put a headphone on and sit on the couch in the living room and just work on something, just fuck around with something. And then usually it's nothing, but sometimes I keep little elements and just upload them in the studio, or just record them and tweak them live. And I think it's a lot of fun. And I think for me, it's also very important just to have a lot of fun while I'm making music.
Absolutely, yeah. So what's your process? You connect a bunch of hardware up, and then do you multi-track it to a DAW or something, to your computer?
I sometimes do. I started with Atari 1040 and Cubase. I still have Cubase, but now I have like Cubase 6 or something. Now I usually, if I'm pressed for time, I work in the computer only. If I have a couple of hours, I'll put up some hardware and record some stuff into Cubase.
But stereo out, just stereo. Oh, multi-track. Okay. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Usually, to be fair, in all fairness, usually stereo. But I could do multi-track if I wanted to. But most of the time, it's just. I already know how I want the drums to sound in relation to each other. So just not even stereo. I'll just mono it out into Cubase.
Ooh. Ooh. I usually record stereo out as well. Well, not mono, but stereo.
Yeah.
Always. I just can't. indecision of having to make decisions, or like having to make decisions later, putting that off, I just can't do it.
No.
I have to decide everything there and then if it's like, if the bass drum is too loud or whatever, then that's fine. It's just a track with a loud bass drum, or that's okay.
Yeah. That's also when I'm back in the 90s, when I made like a lot of music. I made like, well, for me anyway, I made like 5 or 6 tracks a day, and it was just like recording via 4-track Tascam, which I indeed used the preamps off to get like nice distortion going, and then just record to tape, just straight to tape. So it was all a lot of one-take tracks, and I just recorded like boxes of tapes, and just later sorted them out. And some of the stuff is good, and some of the stuff is bad. And the good stuff is really good, and the bad stuff is just like skip it. But I like that the energy of that period, that you can record really fast and just put it on tape, and you have it instantly. You can go out to your car and play it in your car. You just made that in your bedroom, so I really dig that fast vibe.
Yeah, it's like Tuuun says, about not being able to postpone your decisions all the time can be, a very big help in being productive, because the longer you keep postponing these things, and the more options you leave open at any moment in the process, the more time you're going to spend on using those options, and if you basically just terminate the options, then you're done, and it's just take it or leave it, so it's I'm kind of in between, I must say. I record everything live just because I want to have the spontaneity captured, like the vibe of the moment, or the it's like a snapshot in time, I do leave some options open to tweak it afterwards, so I do multi-track it, and sometimes I make use of that feature, and sometimes I don't, because if you record things live, you already are basically setting the levels to the point where they make sense at that particular moment for that particular sound, so I tend to clean up things a little bit sometimes, but I would say that 90% of the stuff that I do these days comes together almost in real time, without too much fuss afterwards. And I'm certainly not into spending days and days and flipping menus and plugins and tedious sort of micro updates and micro increments and stuff like that. I'm not patient enough for that. It's I just spit them out, and sometimes one comes along that I'm really happy with, and the rest just get binned.
I think that's in a producer. If you're a producer and you've been doing it for some time, I think that's like a phase thing you go through as well. I had a phase where I wanted everything multi-tracked, and just have control over everything and recall at any given moment, and then I'm going to listen back to this mix now 3 weeks later and change it just a little bit. It's version 23 of this mix. And at some point, I just decided like this is not really keeping the energy for me. So I think at some point you're going back to working live more. Dave, are you still there? Are you frozen?
Dave?
Oh dear.
He'll come back.
There he is.
Disconnected. Anyway, he's in Australia, so I know it's a long travel for the data,
Yeah, that must be it.
Question from Mogu.com. Oh, there's Dave. I think Dave is coming back. Yay, there we are.
There he is.
We're on rural
let's
broadband out here. We use the term broadband very, very loosely. I think it's the most loosest possible definition of broadband. More like an elastic band, I think.
Well, good to have you back.
Absolutely. Yeah, so do you also record metadata is the question from mogu.com or _com from Twitch. No, I don't.
I do sometimes.
Yeah.
If I remember. Sometimes I'm just like I'm not interested in doing that. because it sounds great, and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to record this now. So I'll just record it and do the session. Halfway through, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm so glad I'm getting the MIDI data for this. And then I'll look at the recorder and it's not recording MIDI data. And I'll be like, well, I'm not going to stop it now just to capture MIDI data.
Yeah.
So Dave, what I was wondering, a lot of your work is based on generative ways of generating patterns and musical intervals and whatever, and you use cellular automata and systems like that. But do you have a similar approach for your sound design? Is that also in a way generated in some way, or do you actually design sounds especially for the purpose? Or is it the same? I don't know. I was wondering, because you seem to be such a fan of FM and synths and stuff. So sort of getting really into the heart of things, how they work. But do you actually make use of them in a way that you sort of tweak them out, or do you also just randomly generate banks and then choose the ones that you like or something? What's the process there?
Well, look, I mean, I really do enjoy programming synths myself and exploring sound, and coming up with different sounds on my synths. But I'm also very interested in how computational devices, algorithms, or generative processes, algorithmic processes, be they computer generated or generated, in other forms, like in the real world, for example, some form of data generation in some way that's been created, and how I can integrate that into sound and music in some way is what interests me. So those two kind of, I like to try to think I keep them in balance, so that I'm satisfying my own curiosity for exploring sound using my own hands, so to speak. But I'm also very interested to see what a machine that I've created, or an algorithm that I've created, as well as it playing, how can it articulate parameters within the sound that it's playing, or manipulate, say, the effects that are being used on that sound. So I like both sides of that coin, and I like to have my cake and eat it, I suppose, because back in the old days I couldn't. When I first started, it was just so laborious to do, whereas now it's a lot easier. So I like both. Yeah, I love programming, and I love hearing how algorithms can come up with sound, as well as the musical side, as well as just as the playing. I think it's an interesting area. I'm not. I like to approach it playfully. It's, as well as it being, there's an academic-ish angle to it, but I'm more playful myself as a person. I've been involved with the universities in the past and done sort of academic-y stuff with them, but I don't want to have that to be my complete world. I like to maintain a kind of playful independence away from that, if you like, and sort of dabble with them from a distance now.
You did a lot of you've done a lot of playful stuff with cellular automata, like that really good release you did on Conditional.
Yeah. What was that called? Night Garden. Yeah.
Night Garden.
GDN. Yeah.
Yeah. And the one that we released recently as well, which was with drum machines and stuff as well.
Yeah, CCD, Celtic Cellular Drums. Yeah.
Chaotic Cellular Drums.
Yeah. Yeah, which was made so long ago. That was so painful making that as well. Like, it would be so much easier to do now, but it was a long, hard process. But
I remember when I met you in Stockholm for that first time, and you were working in EMS.
Yeah.
You had these like, what was it? You had like these like small plastic see-through lunch boxes with, you'd wired everything up inside, and it was like some kind of like cellular automata box that just spits out all of these like patterns and rhythms and I don't know, it looked amazing. It was just like
stuff, yeah, a lot of it was like Arduino based hardware that I was in the middle of. Some of it was built like this one. Unplug it. I had this one with me.
The shelves of the Noyzelab.
I can't really. I'll be very careful to make sure that the umbilical cord stays attached to this. So that one I had.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's
so cool.
It looks really cool. It does.
I've got to find out where the.
Oh dear.
We've got a bit of a circuit board on the top. Then these are all my notes, so I know what the cables are at the back. So I had that with me, and then a load of stuff in lunch boxes that weren't none of which was designed for travelling. I hasten to add. So the wonderful techs at EMS were kind enough to help me out a few times and let me into the workshop and what have you. I mean, look, that's another great area that's again being democratized thanks to things like Arduino and processing and Teensy and all these other, amazing little devices you can now get that if you or a nerdy friend, who can program and you can make friends with, you can do a tiny bit of electronics maybe. You don't really need to do much electronics now, to be honest.
You can do most of these things in Max MSP or in Kima or stuff like that, or Reactor.
That's right. I mean, look, I try and make as much of what I do nowadays open source as I can. It just takes time to do it, which is obviously a difficult thing. So unless I get support somehow, I can't devote a lot of time to doing the open source stuff. But I just put it out when I can. Things like the Arduino Nano or the Uno, for example, you can get them for like $2 on eBay, and you can download them like the Mozzie library or something like that, which is a bit like a kind of C-Sound-ish sort of programming environment, or Super Collider-ish programming environment. So, it's a little programming environment. It does all the basic synthesis building blocks like wave shaping, FM, phase modulation, this, that, and the other, all on this little $2 chip. And it just comes out one of the pins and you stick a resistor on the end of it, and you've got a synth, it's got envelope generators and my microtonal oscillators, a lot of the microtonal drone stuff that I was doing, I worked with things like that. So, you can make like a 4-voice, microtonal drone synth for just a couple of dollars. And all you're doing is changing the code on the computer, downloading it to this little chip, and then putting a crocodile clip on a resistor that's coming out of it. You know what I mean? It's just it's so basic and easy and cheap nowadays to be able to do that kind of thing. To be able to, if you're prepared to do a bit of DIY. It's not for everybody. I understand that, but so many people are getting into that kind of programming now that I mean, back in when I was starting working with technology and electronic music and stuff, it's not that different in the sense that you kind of had to go out and find other people who were interested in what you were interested in. Now, back then, it wasn't so much a thing that was related to aesthetics. It was more about technology, whereas now technology has been a lot more democratized. So you've got in some sense a lot more choice in terms of the type of nerd that you want to locate, should I say, if you don't have the means to do the nerd part yourself or the DIY part yourself. There's a lot more opportunity out there, I think, for people to be able to to collaborate and make interesting technological explorations in music with not a massive financial outlay. Just got to educate yourself basically in some of the processes or some of the people and things like that. And I think that's great. I mean, I know I'm very lucky in that I learned a lot of that technology early when I first started. So it's.
Can you talk about your involvement with the AFX base station?
That thing, yeah.
You did some presets. Yeah, you did the presets for that, or did you do anything beyond just the presets?
I did 30 presets. Well, I think they asked me for 30, and then I did a bunch and we picked 30, and they asked me for an overlay as well. So I mean, I got paid. Yes, it wasn't a freebie. Yes. So it was great. I mean, I signed a non-disclosure agreement, obviously, so I can't say too much. I mean, I can talk about some of the process. I'd be happy to. I mean, look, it's a great synth. Richard had been going on at me for years and years to get one, and I just kept saying no. Pretty much be like that. No, I'm not going to get one. Like various different synths. Anyway, in the end, I think that was his way of making me have one. So they sent me like 2 and some other gear, like a pin and some other stuff, as my payment for doing these I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. anyway,
okay, no, I only mentioned it because your name was in the announcement, so that's why I mentioned it. You don't have to talk about it.
It was great. Yeah, it was worked on quite a while back. I think I programmed all that up in April or something like that. All those sounds and the overlay. And I was interested in capturing what it felt like for me to just be given this new synth. What would be the kind of sounds I'd want to put in it? And it was weird because it made me feel exactly like I was 16 again. It was exactly the same feeling because I felt exactly like I did when I got my Jupiter 4, because that was like a programmable analog. I mean, that's a polysynth, 4-note polysynth, but it's still the same kind of thing in the fact that it's one voice that you're programming and it's 4-note polyphonic for that voice. So it's not that different in the sense that on the AFX station BS2, you've got one panel overlay for what's now a duophonic synth. So it's the same type of thing. So I was getting that same buzz and that same vibe I was getting when I was 16, all over again, of just sort of exploring this synth with all this sort of programmability, and I could store it, which was a very important thing for me for the first synth I got. I wanted to be able to store patches because that was quite a big thing, in 1981, to be able to store your own patch, albeit only 8, I think you could store. Jupiter 4.
Yeah, it's actually it's a very, very good idea if you want to get to know a synth, to assign yourself the job to make presets for it, because that makes you explore the whole machine in with a whole different mindset.
What I did with it was like I because it was making me feel like that, I went through the Jupiter 4 patch book, in the back of the Jupiter 4 manual, and I started looking at the patch sheets, and I thought, I'll transfer some of these over onto the base station for a bit of fun, see what they sound like. And some of them were actually weren't too distant from what I remember the original ones to be like. Even though I could have checked because it was in the other room, but I didn't bother. So I did a few kind of that way, looked through things like the SH101 manuals and the Pro 1 manuals and stuff like that, and was getting inspiration from all these old manuals of all the different patches that they were putting in. So I did a few of those, and then I thought, well, I want to do a one-note drone patch as well, you know, sort of similar-ish, I suppose, to that Drone 4 album that I did on that Meds label with Tom Knapp and Ant from Catalyst. So I did like a DRN4 patch for it as well, which is like you press it down, it's got latch. See, that's another thing that made me like it with the Jupiter 4, because the Jupiter 4 has a hold button on the front. So in 1981, I had this ability to just press a hold button in and hold 4 notes down, and it would just sustain them infinitely, and they just drone forever. And then you just press another key and change them if you want. You can even stick the arpeggiator on them. So I learned all my kind of drone techniques way back then using that hold button, which on this is now called latch or whatever. I think MIDI, it's sustain. I think it's sustain foot switch on off is the actual CC64. I think it's the MIDI controller for that. So yeah, you just hit latch on that, and then bang, you press the note, and it's just infinite hold. You know,
you can just walk away.
On the MS-20, for example, the MS-20 is a rotary for hold, and it runs out after about a minute, I think, which I was eternally disappointed. But in '82, when I got my MS-20, that the whole function didn't go.
A 1 minute drone record isn't any good.
Yeah, you have to keep refreshing the key on the MS-20.
Speed drone.
I was just gonna say about the MS-20. I also used to have an MS-20, and I used to stick like popsicle wood, the wood of a popsicle, you know, in between the keys, just to keep them them going.
Yeah, I had the same thing with
earliest wedge them under like that.
Yeah. One of the earliest Akai samples, they only looped when you had a sustained note, and so you could actually have a popsicle or something like I don't know, like a little wooden piece to be able, you know, to just loop the sounds. And you know that I actually did a few tracks without a sequencer, just having, you know, several sounds loop on under different keys. You know, it would all shift a little bit, you know, like in and out of time.
Well, that BS2 and the AFX station are good for that, because you've got a little sequencer in it, and it's got an arpeggiator as well, you know, which is good. So you can, the amount of things you can do with it are just quite phenomenal. You know, it's like the envelopes are loopable to audio rates, for example. You know, which is pretty bloody impressive. The LFOs go to audio rates, you know, low end audio rates. So you can do FM with the envelope generators and the LFOs if you want to. You know, which is, you know, not to be sniffed at, so to speak.
It's just too bad none of us can get one anymore, because they're probably sold out. And
we'll just get a BS2, because it's exactly the same thing. The only difference is
the presets.
The only difference is, I'll try not to drop it, is the bottom's purple, and obviously it's got the Aphex logo on it. And then obviously you've got the sub-oscillator submarine. All the panel graphics are a bit different.
All right.
You see the sub-oscillator?
Yeah.
That's a submarine logo, that, for example, which is pretty cool. Always does it for me, having little things like that on. And one other thing, because I played live with this at a church on November the 6th, is that unlike it's a good job they're very light as well. So unlike this one, look, where you can see where the knobs are.
Yeah.
You've got the white bits. This is a bit more like what's that spaceship in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Oh, I don't know.
All the knobs, there's no there's just a tiny bit you can feel on the knobs. There's no actual painting on any of the knobs at all. So when you play live, or even in the studio, you can't see where any of them are.
Okay. You don't have.
Nice.
Which is quite nice, actually.
Yeah, I dig that.
I did like that.
Well, that's good, because you have to use your ears.
A bit different, yeah. But I mean, essentially, you can turn a BS2 into exactly the same thing. So, if you want to get a cheap one, then get a BS2 off someone who's flogging theirs to buy one of them.
Yeah, I'll just buy an Apex sticker on eBay and
and then stick an Apex, spray it black and stick an Apex, take all the knobs off.
Yeah.
Even
the PlayStation 1 is a great machine.
I did
it is.
One thing with the Pro 1 patch sheet I did with it was I wanted to program that Vince Clarke Only You sound. That where it's got like a repeat. You press the note and then there's a decay and it goes down. Then when you let the note go, and it comes back up and you get the release of it. So it's like it's almost like an echo effect. It's like a single echo by pressing the note and then releasing it. I think the time you hold the note down will determine whether or not the echo actually happens. So you can play that Only You riff with the Only You sound, which I pinched from his Pro 1 patch. I hope he's not watching, because he'll probably want a 0.1% or a Spotify percentage off me or something for that.
Well, it's inspired by, it's not stolen from, but it's just inspired by. Let's say that.
He published it it was in Electronics and Music Maker like 1982 or whatever, so it's surely out of copyright now.
It's funny how some of the old synths from the 80s and even from the 70s have these books with settings so you can mimic the sound of a violin or a trumpet. I've got a book for my my Synthi EMS, which is EMS Synthi, and it's made by a third party though. It's not from EMS, but it's got all these patch examples for pretty much just only classical instruments, and this is so not what this thing has been designed for, or makes it a special machine. I mean, it is possible to make all kinds of sounds with it, but it's just funny to see that somebody actually made the effort to make it sound like traditional instruments and made a book out of it. It's crazy. That
was one of our big battles in the early days, was to overcome that kind of totalitarianism or whatever you want to call it. All of this, because all the traditional musicians were getting upset about that. We were all, me and a lot of people I knew were all interested in finding new and different sounds that you couldn't find anywhere else.
Exactly.
You buy this synth, and then all the programs in the back would be like, like you say, how to make that, and then there'd be one, police siren and a dog bark and a whistle or something would be, the limit of the scope. There wasn't, you didn't kind of have this Jim Morrison vision of the universe ending sound. Like, there was nothing like you'd expect, that kind of visionary feel you were kind of hoping for in this manual. Nothing seems to have changed in those manuals in that sense, really. I don't think they seem to think that it's more like a decoding of the source code into a parameter list with the source code comments kind of anglicized in some way or whatever. I don't know. It's just, I think writing manuals for synths should have a specific department, I reckon, at synth manufacturers where they can just do it properly.
There should be a special education for this, like in journalism school. Should be one of the what do you call it? Like the
part of the curriculum.
Yeah, part of the curriculum in the end. I graduated on writing synthesizer manuals.
Yeah.
You know, 9 out of 10 times I don't even touch a manual whenever I get something. I mean, I think the last manual I read was the Octatrack manual, because that is one you don't really get very far if you just stare at it and try things. You know, I mean, you can get something happening, but not, you don't really get into the deep corners of it. But other than that, I don't think I've read a manual for ages. You know, for decades probably.
I just
It's
opened
when
the.
you just start pressing and making mistakes on the machine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'll find out about it while you're exploring it. You know, so.
Mm.
And
Just
sometimes,
recently-
it's very possible I miss a lot of features of some of the stuff I have. I don't even know, but you know, I think
It's a good. I think
it
it's a
says-
good mark of a synth or a piece of gear if you start playing around with it. You know, you've maybe cursorily looked at the manual perhaps, or not even bothered, and then you're fiddling around with it, and then the net, you know, within say half an hour or so, you're reaching for the record button. You know, and you're thinking, oh, actually, no, I think I better grab this. Like that's one of the best sort of signs, I think, for an instrument or a piece of tech, is that you're drawn to actually using it to produce quickly. You know, to actually make something that you're happy with, and you want to record it.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
you'd be gutted if you missed it. You know,
yeah.
you would just
I think it's part
spend
of
the time trying to understand how you'd made it. It'd be all over.
Yeah, I think it's part of what makes the whole process of creating things fun. You know, if you are slightly in the dark about part of how things work, you know, like you know, most of the times you make the best things when you have no clue what you're doing. You know. If there's something you are trying to do and you know exactly how to get there, it's probably going to be very boring. And if you have if there's a certain part of what you're doing is a mystery and requires some exploration or experimentation, very often that makes the process more fun and the result more interesting.
And some people like the mistakes that you can see. Either other people don't see them, or they're the bits they like the best.
Yeah.
You know, something that's happened to me in the past is like I'll play someone a bunch of tracks. Like, so let's say I'll play them 10 tracks, and I'll, you know, and they'll go, oh yeah, right, whatever. Because I really like that one the best. You can pretty much guarantee about 99% of the time it's the one you spent the least amount of time with. The one that they'll pick as the one that they personally like the best.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of your music sounds like one big mistake, though, Dave. It's all one mistake. No, I'm just kidding, but no, it's true though. If you're some, you know, because the thing is, if once you release something, basically the statement is this is the final thing, right? This is how it was supposed to be. But very often it's not. You know, I mean, people don't know it because by the act of releasing something is saying, you know, this is the best version of what it could be, or something like that, or this is the version I'm happy to put out into the world. You know, but yeah, so many of the things I've done contain mistakes, you know, and sometimes the bugs become the features, you know.
I also think that because when you send stuff to a label and the label picks tracks, they never pick the track. They never pick the track I wanted on the release.
Yeah,
almost never. And then it becomes more like this release was like a co-production between me and somebody at a label, and the label person picked some tracks of the stuff that I made. So I'm not sure if it's the intended release always that I wanted to make, but it's more like a version of that intended release. So I'm sure that probably is the same for all of you.
I try to. Again, I mean, I suppose I've been lucky in some sense. I've managed to maintain a reasonable amount of independence in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I've had that kind of experience where like you take stuff to people and they either, you know, want stuff take tracks they're not interested in, or they want you to change something in a track, or yeah. I mean, you know, it's. I mean, that's a difficult line. So you've got to make your own call, I think, on that kind of thing about how far you want to go with that process with those particular people. You know, it's good when you put. You know, it's again like the democratization of the synth has been followed with things like Bandcamp and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier for us independent type artists to put stuff out and around on different labels without as much interference now as perhaps was in the past. But that's a very difficult area. I'm with you on that one. It's
I think a lot of the time I just don't like having these kind of conversations. So if there's something that I really want to release, I just release it on my own label and then say, fuck it, you know? I think I really just, not that I need to have that control, but I like it.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that's I think that's a great thing because you get, you know, other people are entitled to their opinions and labels are entitled to their opinions, and labels will have, you know, a particular, depending on the label, I suppose, they're going to have a particular area that they think defines their label, and if what you're giving them is perhaps, you know, only partially within that area, they feel they've got the right to carve the other part out in order to put your music out. And not all labels are like that. And
how do you deal with that, Vincent? Because you release an awful lot. Your catalog is absolutely humongous. Do you sort of moderate what people give you for releases, or
that's it's kind of a double-edged sword, of course, because when I'm complaining about this in a sense. On the other hand, I'm also doing this, but not so strictly. Not so strictly though. You know, my label is pretty small time, New York Haunted label. We are now 236 releases, I think, deep, and
that's insane.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
incredible.
But usually, I don't like if people send me stuff they think will fit on the label. I really want them to send me stuff that they are very happy with.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can pick it, I can hear it, you know, like they send me tracks like, okay, now you're just sending me a bunch of acid tracks. I don't necessarily need any more acid tracks. I just want you to send me what you are happy with sending me. And I hope, I've never said it to an artist that he or she needs to change something specifically in a track. I think I've chosen tracks that go good together, like for an EP, something like that. You know, make cut one or two tracks off the stuff they sent me, but I rarely ask them to send me something else and then they were sending me.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I've ran several labels and people tend to sometimes send you stuff that they made for the label, and then they use the back catalog of the label as their example of what you think you want for the label. But basically, you've already released that, so why would you release something like that again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that sense, I'm with you. I'm like, just make something you're happy with, and whether I think it could be part of the catalog or not, you know, is either yes or no. But I would never try to change it or intervene in whatever they offer. You know, it's like either I feel it's part of it. It could be, you know, added to the collection or not. And but I would rather have people send me something special, something they're really behind and proud of, with no without having it made for the label or pitched towards the sound of the label, because all you'll end up with is something like a label where everything sounds the same, you know, which it's just there's no point to it.
How do you do it, Tuuun? Because you run Fluff, which is one of the best labels I've seen in the last couple of years. So
I rarely get asked anyone to. Well, I've never actually. I think asked anyone to change anything in a track. I have occasionally picked tracks out of a selection of tracks, and I think on one or two occasions, an artist has asked me for input, and we've like developed a certain number of tracks together. But quite often, someone just sends me something that's a bit bonkers or whatever, and I say, "Oh, I'd really like to release that, please."
Yeah.
And I know when I released your one, Dave, I was just so curious about that title. I just really wanted to hear what it sounded like, and I mean,
That's the one as a NYZ, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always difficult when or it's not difficult, but it's where it gets really interesting when you're working with an artist and you build up a relationship together, and you both are trying to make something as good as possible, but then the route to that might be different, but then you usually kind of end up seeing eye to eye by the end. I hope usually, and I think that's the part of running a label that I really, really enjoy. It's not so much the dubbing cassettes and posting shit out. It's more that process, I think, is really valuable to me. And I've learned a lot from a load of different artists that I've released on, just maybe about their approach or how they group tracks or think about like structuring a release, or all of these things that people put into making their music makes it so interesting, because there are so many different ways that people approach working with sound and making tracks, making music, and you can always learn something from someone, even if you're just maybe choosing a couple of their tracks or whatever. There's always something that like interesting there, I think, and that's what drives me to keep going with it.
Do you and Vince actively hunt for people, or hunt for certain artists or something, or is everything you release basically sent to you?
I think I did, like at the start, I definitely hunted for some people because nobody knew anything about me or this label Floof. So I was like friends with some people like Callum Gunn, who runs Conditional, which is another amazing label. And some friends here in Copenhagen who ran a label called Disformation that was really good, and we all kind of cross-pollinated for a while. But you end up, once you're kind of like, let's say, hanging out with people or talking to people online, you end up striking up friendships with a range of different people, and then it becomes a really organic thing where they're like, oh, I'm working on this stuff, and you say, well, you should send it to me and have a listen, and then if it fits, it fits. It's not so often that a demo will be something that I will release, because I find that the stuff that you get sent as demo can sometimes people mightn't even like know what your label is. They just send it to all the labels out there,
Yeah, you get those as well. Yeah.
Yeah. The last one I think that I released that was a demo that I didn't know at all before was this one by this artist called Parsa, who made this really cool release on using a Drvg Cvltvre, I think, and which is a synth. It's a great synth.
Yeah, I used to have one. Did a lot of my early generative stuff I did on the Drvg Cvltvre. Like, I got it back in the UK and brought it to Australia with me. I sold it a few years ago, regretfully.
That could be a whole separate episode. Gear you regret selling.
No, wrong episode. No, that's a great sense, the Evolver. Yeah, so carry on, Steve. Yeah, Stephen, what was the...
and it was just like, got an email saying, hello, I made this music, and I listened to it and was completely blown away. And we're good friends now, and I think Paris has released music on your label, Vince, and super artist.
Yeah, it's really good. In the beginning, I didn't know. Did I? No, I didn't. I don't think I've ever. Yeah. So only the last couple of years I've reached out to musicians specifically because I wanted them to do something on the label. And the first couple of years, it was just like people. As soon as I started releasing stuff, people sent me stuff. But I wasn't. I wanted to diversify the label a little bit, and I wanted more female producers, and I actively sought out female producers to work with, because they didn't. I don't know why, but they didn't never send me stuff. So I just found a couple of producers that I really thought were doing interesting stuff, and just sent them a message, like Lorraine James, who did like two things online on Bandcamp only, and then I sent her a message like, I want to do a tape, and she sent me stuff over, and it was really good. And a couple of more where I just sent them a specific request for, hey, please send me some stuff for the label if you have time, or if you have material, feel free to share it, because I'm really interested in your music and I want to put it out. And now we are at 236, and we're almost at 250, and the label will cease to exist at 250. So,
nice.
What? I'll better send you something quick then if you.
That's a great idea. Absolutely,
Yeah.
Amazing idea. Yeah, cool, nice. Then, so is that something you planned from the start, or is it just because there's something itching and you want to start something new right now? Or something?
I'll be honest. I planned to go to 500, but I don't see myself reaching 500, so I just cut it in half and made it 250. I think 250 is a lot of music.
It's a lot of music.
Yeah. So it was always the plan to end it at some point at a specific moment, just to cut it off, and then either and we're still debating. I'm still debating this with a lot of the artists. We have a secret Facebook chat group, and we talk regularly, almost daily. And we're still debating if at 250 everything becomes free, or if everything becomes locked. We're not sure.
Yeah.
So.
Or super expensive.
Super expensive, yeah. Probably not super expensive, but yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to head out to 250.
Yeah, I like a lot of the ideas in all of the stuff that you're doing have these kind of almost binary characters, it's like you end the label there, or you have you give things away on SoundCloud and stuff like that. It's just a very you kind of mess with the rules of the industry in a way, sort of punky in a way.
Yeah, it's cool. Also because I was a part of the music industry like a long time ago.
Are.
Well, I'm on the edge of it, throwing hands of sand into the machinery right now. But I used to be like
trying to sabotage it.
Trying to sabotage it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But I used to be.
Yeah, that's a good idea for your pricing model.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
Yeah.
But I used to be like in a band, and we were signed to Roadrunner, and we did like I did like marketing meetings and video shoots and stuff like that, and we made $100,000 video clips, and we recorded in the studio in LA, and all that crazy stuff that was still happening in the music industry like 25, 30 years ago. So I've seen what that looks like, and I really don't want to be part of that anymore. So I specifically aim to be like outside of that and just do what I feel.
But there's a massive space in between, It doesn't mean that if you I mean, sabotage is not the only option beside that. You know what I mean?
Not really.
We're already embarrassing them all by producing such amazing music without the requirement of a large record company.
Yeah.
No, it's cool though. But I mean, I think it's great that you have, it's quite special that you have even lived through that.
Yeah, it is. Well, it was fun to do. Also fun to witness.
Not everybody can say that, you know.
Yeah, it was fun to look and to be a spectator on that, but I never felt at home in that environment. So I just was like, okay, we just started a band just to be when you're 15 or 14 and you can't really play an instrument. You just want to be the loudest, fastest band in your village. That's why we started a band, you know. And I never started a band to be at a boardroom talking to marketing managers about the hidden meanings of a song and how we can sell it and how we can market it. And it was just like,
God's sake,
I don't know, you know. So that was never part of the plan. This is a very specific plan, and this is the way I feel very comfortable doing stuff in music and helping others release their music, and getting their trust. I think that's very important, that somebody gives you their trust and they send you their tracks and they trust you to share that with the world. I think that's something really special, and I'm not sure labels think about that enough.
No, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I'm quite blown away by the fact you say you're going to end the label at 250. I think that's brilliant. It's amazing. It's cool. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on it. I'm curious to see what it will end up being, whether it's going to be open source or locked or whatever.
We're also still working on number 250 itself, which should be something different than we've done before. There's a guy in Russia working on some software. We're hoping to release a bit of software as our 250th release.
Wow.
Cool.
So I'll keep you posted.
Nice. Looking forward to that. Question for Noyzelab. How did you end up in Kotamundra? Is that where you are? In New South Wales?
Yes. Yeah,
so how far away from Sydney are you?
Indeed. Very good question indeed. Well, I ended up in Australia because I was doing my PhD here in 2003 on generative music and cellular automata.
Nice.
And, yay! Which I finished in 2006, and I got booked for a festival in Wagga called Unsound, which was before the Unsound Poland and stuff. It's like that's kind of related to the one in Wagga because the one in Wagga came first. And one of the organisers was a lady called Sarah Last, and we ended up getting married and having 2 kids. So. That's where she's from. So I moved rather than moving all the way back to the UK. I thought it was probably easier just to stay in Australia and not
your stuff.
Yeah,
Wagga, so good they made the name.
Yeah. So we started a thing called the Wired Lab. After she did a lot of the Unsound stuff in Wagga, and we started that thing called the Wired Lab, and working on like rural contemporary art stuff, field recording, worked with a lot of people like Alan Lamb, Robin Fox, Warren Ambarchi, Russell Haswell, all sorts of people.
Talking about Robin Fox, have you visited Mess in Melbourne?
I've not visited it. No, I don't get down to Melbourne very often. Rarely at all, actually, do I get to Melbourne. I'd love to go down there one day. It looks amazing. They've got some amazing gear.
Yeah.
I've got reasonable access, obviously, to my own gear and through other people I know as well. So it's not like vital for me to. I'm not missing out, so to speak, on by not going there. The only reason I'd be missing out would be, some bits of gear that I find interesting that I perhaps haven't got access to, and meeting people and doing workshops and stuff. But I've not had a chance to see inside it yet. But it looks like a great space. They're doing a great job. It's very well used. Much like EMS in Stockholm's busy. There's people in there all the time. Stuff's happening.
Yeah, I think it's just really great that places like that exist. Making these almost impossible to get pieces of electronic music instrument history available to a larger group. That's great.
Oh yeah, very good. Steve.
Yeah, just to go back to the Wired Lab there for a minute, didn't I'm not sure, was it just you or was it you with collaborators came up with a system for for measuring rainfall through sound?
That was a project I've started called Rainwire.
Rainwire, yeah.
That was it. Yeah. So I was doing some of that. I was doing a lot of processing of that at EMS when I saw you, and then I did a whole load of processing on Aphex's Fairlight with a lot of those samples as well. So I'm doing an album of or series of releases which will be Rainwire processed, because I did an installation up at University of Hull that same year that I met you. So I did a Rainwire processed installation, which was lots of these processed versions of that project done in all these different studios, like processing all the sounds differently and playing them out of like massive guitar and bass amps around this ensemble room. So it was like a multi-channel, multi-speaker sensorial thing. But yeah, so that's very long pieces of fencing wire at high tension, up to like about 750 meters long, going across the landscape with piezo pickups on them, and then recording the rain and the sounds of the rain hitting the wire. And the different types of rain produce different types of sound, and obviously the levels of intensity will change and things like that. So it's a way of acoustically monitoring rainfall. It got shortlisted for a Rolex award for innovation. Actually, I didn't get the award. Sadly.
It's an honor just to be nominated.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like throw the dart and see what happens. It's like, I'm kind of done with grants this year. I'm over writing grants now. I've just had it. So I'm done. I've been turned down a few times, and I've been insulted by research, government research people and stuff, and I'm just like, okay, I'll just remain independent from now on. Make cool music and put it out on cool labels like Steve's.
Yes,
I'm right.
So did these wires were in Australia? They were near your house, or was it like?
I built them.
All right.
Yeah, we did. We started working originally with a guy called Alan Lamb back in 2006. So Alan sort of developed these kind of long wire, giant Aeolian harp type installations, and we did some collaborative builds with Alan, and then I started building my own ones, and then developed this project called Rainwire off the ones I was doing, which was looking more at recording rain, and examining rainfall patterns and using rain as a creative medium, basically, for producing sound.
Cool. So how long did you have to wait for the rain to come when you built it? Because you would have been better off to build it in Scotland or something.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's one of those. It's a really kind of long form type of project that you're doing over multi years, and you're going out recording bits, monitoring the weather, and then going out maybe for a day doing the long form recording, see what you get, and then build up. Basically, I've been building up an archive over the years, probably since about 2007, maybe of 2008 of rain on wires.
That's cool.
So
is the sound? Is it just the sound that gets recorded, or there are are there actually data recorded from the?
Well, that was where the project was going. I was getting to the point where I was wanting to record data in real time at the same time as the rain. So I was looking at ways of measuring the acoustics. So I was looking at averaging energy and frequency bins across the audio spectrum. It's basically that idea that I derived the acoustic monitoring from was derived from how you monitor water over sea. So was it 2/3 of the planet's covered by water, but it's one of the most difficult places to measure rain, unless you're using radar, which is obviously quite inaccurate because it's very coarse grained. So you can't make very accurate rain recordings in the oceans unless you use a technique called acoustic rainfall monitoring using underwater hydrophone. So you sink a hydrophone about 1 or 2 kilometers underwater, listen to the sound of the rain hitting the water, the size of the raindrops and the intensity that the rain hits the water entrains an air bubble in the water, which then goes back up to the surface and forms a pop. So you've got the impact sound and the pop.
Are there hydrophones that can?
Different sizes will produce different frequency bands of noise, of pings and clicks. And
are there hydrophones that can actually pick up the sound from kilometers away from the surface?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, they have to. That's it. It's quite a remarkable thing. They discovered it in the Second World War, actually, through sonar and hydrophones in submarines, and they thought it was interference originally. They were hearing all of these sounds, and they couldn't work out what it was. And eventually, they worked out it was the sound of rain hitting the surface of the ocean above them, and then that was kind of forgotten about until I think the late 70s, early 80s, and a handful of researchers in Greece and the USA started to pick up on this idea that you could monitor the sound of rainfall hitting the ocean or the sea surface, and then devised some algorithms that would quantify reasonably well the type and intensity of rain. So over time, you could use the sound of that rain to give you an indication of how much and how intense the rain was, which is vitally important if you're trying to monitor rainfall more than, say, taking a daily or a weekly or a monthly average. You need to have for things like erosion, if you've got 100 millimeters of rain and it falls in the space of 10 seconds, it's going to be a world of difference to 10 millimeters to 100 millimeters of rain falling steadily over, say, 12 hours. But if you've only taken one measurement in that day, it still looks exactly the same, but the outcome's completely different, because with one outcome you'll have no topsoil left and everything will be washed away and you'll have loads of erosion and flooding, and in the other case it would have come down so gently it would have all dispersed and gone away and not caused any damage at all. So it's a way of involving sound and time in scientific research, which is also now field recording itself is getting into that area. Bioacoustic monitoring for ecological diversity. It's called bioacoustic monitoring. Allows you to estimate biodiversity over time in an environment without actually having to go in and manually catch species until species can. You can estimate the amount of species based on the sounds that they make over time during the day. Different calls that are made and how much of it there is. So our field of sound synthesis and sound and music is such a huge, all-encompassing area that we traverse all of these other areas of knowledge, don't we? And it's quite remarkable how the process of us all making music is incredibly interconnected with all these other aspects of the real and complicated world that we live in. You know.
Yeah, it's in a way it's cool that when you would just listen to the start of our conversation, we were very much talking about gear and FM and stuff like that. But in a way, it's full circle now because a lot of the things that are a lot of the processes and things that are part of music are actually happening in nature as well, and in that sense the connection between nature and cellular automata or automata as you call it, and musical processes they're very, very close links or very obvious ties between the two things, between the two worlds.
Yeah, there's lots of interconnections that I suppose in some sense you can even view them as almost non-causal interconnections. It's kind of like operating on a different plane, if you like, almost. I like to think sometimes, as well as like that scientific causal kind of world, there's other aspects to our existence that I don't think we're fully aware of all the time or fully knowledgeable about, and I don't think we ever will be.
That's a great note to say that it's already longer than 2 hours. I don't want to keep you occupied for too long, but I mean, I would love to continue this conversation, but maybe we should give everybody a break and
I can have some breakfast.
Yeah, unless you want to bring something up we did not talk about and wanted to mention, maybe anyone. You know what? I'll give everybody the chance to kind of do a little shout out to or promo thing or like like how do you say it? Like a round of plugs. The stuff we're working on. We want to any upcoming releases or whatever things you're working on and you want to share with the people that are watching this. Maybe Dave, you go first.
Oh, okay. Got a few things coming up. We've got all being well, December the 4th. I've got a CD coming out on Berlin label Rose, ROHS. It's called CPM Subtree, follow-up CD to what I did on Soma Sci-Fi, Brian Granger's label. Then I've got doing a lot of stuff with our wonderful friends over in Russia, Stellage.
Yeah,
the right way to pronounce it. We're just finalising a CD release for hopefully in January. Another Noyzelab release. I won't say the title of that one yet. I'm going to say too far ahead. Yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead with that. But yeah, we've got a few other things lined up with the Stellage Entract posse, so to speak. And yeah, lots more lined up with Brian Granger as well with Soma Sci-Fi. We've been on a bit of a hiatus this year with COVID. It's been really affecting the US Postal, so we've put all my physical releases with Soma Sci-Fi on hold, and that's now unpaused, and we've got one lined up. I'm just selecting the tracks for it at the moment. It's going to be another one of my NYZ series. I won't give the game away and say what the title is, but it'll be another series focusing around one specific synthesizer module and chip that I'm particularly interested in. So it'll be a bunch of stuff on that. So.
Great. So what's the best place people can find your music? Your Bandcamp? Is that the place?
Yeah, on my Bandcamp, and also on my Twitter as well. Twitter feed is going to be the best place to get the news. I do a newsletter as well. You can sign up at noyzelab.com, but that's kind of taken a bit of a hit this year. I've got to get a next version of my newsletter out. I was even considering putting it on a hiatus. I don't know yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. Anyway, keep your eye on Twitter for all the latest be the first announcements for stuff are on there. And thanks for everybody for buying music directly from artists.
Yeah, I guess this is the independence episode. Here's to independence. Okay, cool. Thanks, Dave. Vince,
Thank you.
What do you have? What do you have cooking? Something you want to share?
I'm working on something called Euphoria Forever, which is a never-ending composition made by pure data modules and some other stuff that I'm not really don't have working yet, which I'm gonna need Steven's help with at some point.
Okay.
I'm planning to make this never-ending, always altering, self-altering composition, which is based on 50 Drug Culture tracks, which will be like a radio station with constant Drug Culture, self-generated music.
Wow, is that going? How is that work? Is it based on granular synthesis or recombination in some way, or is it based on samples or?
It's based on recalculating my decisions, making tracks for 500 tracks, and then getting those numbers to correspond with a sample database and sequencer and melodic choices.
So it's like a reconstruction machine, kind of like a.
It's like a module which emulates my choices.
Nice.
The choices I would make for a Drug Culture track specifically. I've been talking to some people. I'm trying to get into Sample RNN as well, which is a program which goes directly into the audio, which is a machine learning program. But I feel that for Drug Culture, it's better to work with these modules because that's something I can do myself, and I can get good help from people that know what they're doing. So it's all cool.
So what happens if you change your mind? Does it change its mind as well?
It's calculating how many times I change my mind, and then it will implement that in the never-ending composition.
Awesome. Is that actually a thing that you are incorporating in it?
Yeah,
Changing
it
your
is.
mind? Oh,
it
wow.
Is. Yeah, yeah.
That's fantastic.
There's a couple of these weird things that I tend to do that are kind of self-destructive inside of a track, which I'm calculating right now what the percentage of is, and that I'll have to translate that to a module which can send this information to a drum machine or a synth. So I will have a long way to go, but this is something I've planned to do in 21 and finish maybe in early 22. It should be operational. So
you don't ever have to make music again once that's up.
I'll make music, but I won't make music as Drug Culture. Drug Culture will be the always evolving, always playing station, and I will make music under a different name.
Wow. Another thing you're terminating.
Oh, well.
Damn.
2020, the year of big decisions.
It's only a name.
Still me. Fair enough. Yeah.
You're still you.
I'm still me. I really am. I'm not the computerized version yet. No, but it's fun to work on, and it's something that really interests me. And that's really something that I see happening more and more. That machine learning is giving us some tools that we can work with. It's also destructive in some ways, but I also think that it's good to get as many people in this from the ground up. So that it will also be a democratized tool to work with for some people. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit tired. I'm slurring a little bit now.
It's okay.
All right. And the label is going to 250, and you can follow me on Twitter, New York Haunted, or on Facebook, Drug Culture or New York Haunted. And we have a Bandcamp, NewYorkHaunted.bandcamp.com, where all the releases are. So
Yeah,
And send me
good
stuff
luck
if
getting
you
through
want.
that.
Send me demos if you're watching and you make stuff that doesn't sound like anything on the label. It's newyorkhaunted@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Nice.
And Tuuun, what are you up to?
Well, as a label runner, the next thing that we're doing is I say we, but it's just me.
Yeah.
The next thing we're doing is a CD by a Finnish artist called Luke Lund, and it's been in the works for a while. And I thank him very much for his patience. But he's a really, really cool guy and great artist. After that, we'll be doing something with a Spanish artist called Agnes P, who makes this really intense MIDI, hyperspeed MIDI music, which is really unique sounding. So I'm really excited about that. They're the two next things in the works, I think, for Floof, and you can find Floof on fluf.space. We got a fancy URL.
Space, yeah.
.space. As an artist, I'm still, working on my 10-minute long 150 BPM techno. I'm going to keep doing that for a while because I'm really enjoying it. And some longer form stuff, some a cappella stuff. I'm working on some a cappella stuff. There's no home for that yet, but I'm hoping it'll be. I think that's like a big project. And then apart from that, as a person, I'm like, I'm learning yoga. I'm just gonna stick with that. But my artist website is Tuuun, which you can see down here .org, and then it's got links to everything there. So.
Yeah, I think Sander is posting all the URLs. There you go.
Thank you.
In the comments. Thanks, Sander. Cool. So I think I'll just stick to the Patreon for now. We have set up a Patreon for people who like this project and this chat. They can go there and support us. And even if they want to go into the higher tiers, they can find stuff, some goodies like sound banks and samples and footage from the lab, stuff like that. So, and even some masterclasses, private Twiddlers Hangouts, basically. So yeah, I would encourage people to have a look there. And also we just started the second season of the Stay Home Sound System series. The first one was a series of jams that took place here in the lab. Basically just invite a person, get a setup together, and maybe rehearse for 2 minutes, see if everything works, and then press stream and start and do something completely improvised live over the internet, which was very cool. And this season we're doing it in a different way. We're syncing up over the internet, so the pool of people that I can potentially invite is a lot bigger. People that cannot reach the studio, but who could be anywhere in the world. And so have started the season with Robin Kampschoor. The second one was with Surgeon, and we'll continue the series to have a total of 20 episodes, and that's a lot of fun. It should be. Oh, actually, last Sunday was with Mo Espinosa drum cell from LA, so that was a nice one too. Yeah, it all seemed to work perfectly. It's really fun not seeing the person you're jamming with, but the music it takes over after 2 minutes. You get used to it, and everything is basically the same as when you would be in the same room. So it's a fun way of working together. Anyway, so I really enjoyed this one, people. Really nice to hang out with you.
Likewise.
Great to see you again after all these years, Dave, and nice to see you for the first time, both Vince and Tuuun. And yeah, hope you had a good time. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out.
Me too.
It was great.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll see you later.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Have a good day. Enjoy your breakfast, Dave.
Thanks,
Ciao.
you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.